Good evening, everyone. I would like to call to order the regular board meeting of the Vallecitos Water District this May 7th, 2025 at 5 p.m. Before we begin, I would like to announce that members of the public may watch this meeting live via computer or smart device by going to the district's website. And with that, I've asked Director Ellithorpe to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. Director?
Sorry, I've been told that we're not getting audio. Can somebody check to see if we're getting audio or somebody double check on that? Please continue.
Okay. Sorry you're not getting audio. Read lips for just a moment. We'll get that fixed. Directors, please indicate your attendance.
Oh, they're getting audio now.
And I think we are all present, all five of us, and thank you. Thank you for fixing the audio. Do we have any additions to the agenda?
No, sir.
May I have a motion to adopt the agenda for the regular board meeting this May 7th, 2025?
So moved.
Moved by Director Boyd-Hodgson.
Second.
Seconded by Director Kirschbaum. Please vote.
Actually, we need to do the attendance again.
We will do the attendance again. Please indicate your attendance. We are all in attendance. And now we are voting on the agenda. That was moved and seconded. And that motion passes. 5-0, thank you. Is there any public speakers?
No, sir.
No public speakers? Any presentations? None? Consent items. May I have a motion to approve the consent calendar as presented, or if we'd like to have poll one? Yes.
Can I pull 1.3 and 1.4 for the, these are both near each other, right? Paloma Townhomes and then the mixed-use sewer improvements. Oh, yeah, so those are like right next to each other. I just had a couple questions about those.
Okay.
I would also like to pull 1.5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. These are big decisions, and I'm not comfortable with these types of big decisions being put on the consent calendar without presentation to the board, or at least made public in a setting where the public can at least view the proceedings and us have a conversation about it.
Okay, so items 1.3 through 1.9 inclusive, we are polling those, and we'll make presentations later at a later time. Is that what happens?
No, we'll talk about them right here.
Talk about them right now?
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Yes, and,
So we're just consenting to 1.1 and 1.2. Is that it?
yeah, and then those items will be presented as if they're action items.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
We will do that then, moving forward. Do we still make a motion to
You need a
consent?
motion to approve.
Approve
the
1.1 and 1.2 of
of
the consent
consent.
items. Okay, we have a motion to approve 1.1 and 1.2 on the consent calendar.
So moved.
Moved by Director Boyd-Hodgson.
Second.
Seconded by Director Kirschbaum. Please vote. So moved. Thank you. And then moving on, action items.
Well,
Do we
we'll have
do
to,
these now?
we'll have to go through 1.3 to 1.9 first, sir.
First? Okay. Well, let's move
Hand it
forward.
over.
Hand it over to our general manager.
So
Please present.
our district engineer, Elizabeth Lopez, is here to talk about these items. But 1.3, excuse me, is the approval construction agreement for Paloma Townhomes and sewer improvement. So this is part of our standard development process, but I believe Elizabeth Lopez will be presenting on this item. So, or I guess the better question is there a specific question on this item before we move forward so we could address your comments?
Can we pull up the exhibit that shows the project in plan view with the sewer going in?
Yes. Just give us a second.
Thank you for being ready on the spot. Elizabeth, appreciate that. So you're trying to look at pages 20 through 21? Is that what?
Yes.
Okay. Board Packet 20 through 24.
One of the ways we can do it is just pull up the agenda and just share the whole agenda.
Okay, I can ask my question now, though, before the exhibit is up. So I was just confused on which way the sewer is going, because it looked like it connected into Grand on the north side, and then I don't know the name of the street on the other side, so I was curious what was happening with the sewer there.
Figure would be helpful.
Yeah, well, we can wait, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get it up. Just go ahead, yep, and pull up the agenda, and then just share the whole agenda, and just, we'll go to 1.3. If you let me drive, if you share it, I'll pull it up for you.
Maybe, I did have a second question, maybe we can talk about that, because that one doesn't really need the exhibit as much. So my other question was on the bond amounts. How are those calculated? Does the owner do an estimate and then submit to us for approval, or do we do the estimate? How does that work?
So we have a standard spreadsheet that can be downloaded from our website, and it has our standard assets that we install with development, and we have unit pricing established for those assets, and it's based on previous bid price history. And we adjust those unit pricings every January based on ENR. So in theory, the unit pricing's staying up with the cost of inflation. And the engineer of record for the project, who the developer hires, downloads the spreadsheet, and they plug in the quantities for the project. The unit pricing's already established, and then that calculates the bond amounts.
Okay, thank you. And then, has there ever been a situation where we have the bond from the owner and then the project goes away, or maybe the project is built but they did not build the infrastructure associated with it? Do we ever use that bond then to construct the infrastructure ourselves?
So in my experience here, that hasn't happened, and my experience at other agencies prior to this, that's pretty uncommon. The other project on tonight's agenda, which is an action item for another development project, the High Point project, actually was a project that started construction long ago. Developer went bankrupt and walked away from the project, and we chose not to pull bonds and finish it, but it was primarily because the developer didn't build homes. So there was no need to complete improvements at that time. So it's not very common that happens.
Yeah, that's good.
That makes sense, thank you.
We have pulled bonds on other jobs before, but we haven't had to do it on a development job.
Okay.
We've had to do it on capital in the past.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, and then here's the picture. So I was confused on where the sewer is going, via Veracruz or Grand.
Yes, so for this development, the development's actually relocating some on-site sewer in an easement. So the proposed 8-inch sewer shown on the figures being relocated. Currently, it's further west on the site. And the proposed development connects into the proposed 8-inch sewer at various locations because it's multifamily housing, so they have numerous laterals connecting to it. That proposed 8-inch sewer south, and then the sewer flows to the west from there, towards Via Veracruz.
So it's not connected then to the northern piece?
No.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
Mm-hmm.
That answers question 1.3. And 1.4?
We can move on to 1.4, which is the approval of construction agreement for Marcos Mixed Use and Sewer Improvement.
That's the same, okay. just
Kind of point of order,
adjacent
do you want to take these items one at a time? So you should take board action on 1.3.
Oh, what action, did you just approve it?
What I would like
One
to
at a
see, I would like to see the background for each one of these and a walkthrough of each one of these.
Okay, so we'll approve them as we go through?
Yes, thank you.
So have you satisfied 1.3? Do you have any other questions?
No.
If not, can we approve,
I think she wants to see
Oh, did you have a-
background.
more on that one, or the,
How much of this is affordable housing?
To my knowledge, none, but that's really a question for the city because we don't really get involved over what type of housing with, aside from it just being single family or multifamily.
This is multifamily?
Yes,
Okay, and we've not broken ground, or we have broken ground?
we have not. This is the construction agreement,
Okay.
so that's authorizing construction to begin.
Okay, all right, thank you.
You're welcome.
question? Any other questions on 1.3, mixed use project? Well, this is the agreement for Paloma Townhomes. If not, we have a motion.
So moved.
Moved by Director Elder, second? I'll second that. Director Hernandez will second that, and have we vote? Item number 1.3 passes 5-0. Moving on to 1.4 on the consent calendar. Approval of
yes.
construction agreement for Marcos mixed-use sewer.
And of course, Elizabeth will be the star for all these, so I'll just
All
hand
right,
it over
you-
to Elizabeth.
You're the
So-
rock star tonight.
So we'll provide a little bit of background of where this project is, what we're approving, and then I'll go to the figure for you.
Yes, so this project will be constructing approximately 31 feet of 8-inch sewer. It will be serving approximately, sorry to read the memo, I don't have the number of homes off the top of my head. We usually list it. Can you scroll down?
Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
You can control it too with the mouse.
Oh,
if you
can I
want.
drive
Yeah,
now?
you can
Perfect.
drive.
7 live-work dwellings.
What was that?
7 live-work dwellings.
Oh, yes, 7 live-work units, and there's a lot of commercial space on this portion of the project. It's primarily restaurants, there's a brewery, a distillery, and this site's primarily commercial.
Yeah, this project was also highlighted at the last engineering committee as one of the new projects that are coming into the San Marcos.
Nice. Right across from where, there's a gas station going in now, Costco, I think, right there too.
I believe so.
Um,
We haven't seen plans on that though.
No?
Not yet.
Interesting. Questions on this one? Any questions, comments? Thank you for presenting that. May I have a motion to approve 1.4 on the consent calendar?
Move to approve.
Moved by Director Hernandez,
Second.
second by Director Kirschbaum. Please vote.
All right, next for final acceptances.
Motion passes 5-0. Thank you. Moving on to 1.5 of the consent calendar, final acceptance for the North City Drive. And our rock star continues.
So if this is approving final acceptance for North City Drive. This project is completing construction. This project constructed approximately 538 feet of 10-inch PVC water and 532 feet of 12-inch sewer.
400.
My eyes are not finding it. Oh.
It's on the bottom of that paragraph.
It's 500,000.
Oh, 400 multifamily dwelling units, and this is located off of the new North City Drive, just north of Discovery Street.
And this is the final acceptance, so all the facilities have been constructed, and the final acceptance is the acceptance where the district takes ownership of the new facilities, which will serve this future community.
This is the Hill District.
That's, the next several are all next to each other, I believe, and yes, the Hill District area.
Nice. Any problems with this one?
No,
We've had, it's been pretty basic.
yeah, pretty straightforward.
Any,
Move to approve.
we have a motion by Director Hernandez,
Second.
second by Director Kirschbaum. Please vote. Motion passes. Thank you so much. Where are we at? 1.6?
Yes.
1.6, final acceptance for North City West. Again, I think it's an adjacent one to what we just saw.
It is. The next several are kind of in the same development. So this portion or this phase constructed 752 feet of 12-inch water and 660 feet of 12-inch sewer. This is serving Planning Area 6 and Planning Area 7, which is comprised of 127 multifamily homes.
Nice. Any questions?
These figures down at the bottom with the water and wastewater cap fees, they have already been paid?
Not necessarily. The developer's not obligated to pay them until prior to meter release and occupancy. So these pays could be paid by now, but it's not required for final acceptance. Sometimes final acceptance is completed and then occupancy comes
Yeah.
later.
Actually, in this one, I know we put you on the spot,
Yeah.
this one, they have been paid. If not, the memo typically says, it lists the ordinance and says they have to pay it prior to occupancy. So within the
Okay.
memo, if they've been paid, it actually lists that it's been paid, or lists that we are expecting to collect it.
Okay, thank you. And I appreciate that the fees are down at the bottom. That's really helpful. You know, my purpose of pulling these is because this is a large part of the business of what we do. And I think to put it in a consent calendar when we just check the box without going through it for the benefit of the public is just not as transparent as we could be. So I don't have any specific objections to any of these. I object to the aspect of not being as transparent as we could be about these really big decisions that are impacting our community.
Thank you.
But didn't we approve this already at the board meeting? These,
We approved the construction agreement a long time ago. Now this is just the final acceptance. Either way, there's two main touch points with development. It's the construction agreement and then the final approval. So those are the two times the board really sees it. So when we approve the construction agreement, which also has conditions, and then when we finally accept the infrastructure that the development has built based on our conditions. So yes, we approved the construction agreement, but not the acceptance. This is the acceptance.
right. But the acceptance is just, they've done the job, check the box, right?
Yeah, it's the finalization, it's the bookends.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yes, it's the bookends of it.
Yeah,
We-
I think we have been transparent with those items.
Thank you. Yeah. Motion to approve 1.7.
1.6,
1.6.
sorry. You're on 1.6.
It is still 1.6.
Seems like Groundhog Day, but yes, we're still
Thank
on
you for keeping
1.6.
me on track. Motion to approve 1.6 as
It
presented.
is my right to pull these.
No, I know.
Let's
no,
just,
no,
like,
that wasn't
let's
for
not
you, that
dismiss
was-
that, please. It is my right to pull these and
Nope.
examine them.
No, I agree with
No,
what you're saying.
that wasn't, apologies, that wasn't intended as a slight
Thank
on
you.
you pulling them at all.
No, he's just keeping me straight because I lost it, so yeah. Motion to approve 1.6, correct? All right,
So moved.
so moved, second? Second. Seconded, please vote. And motion passes, and I appreciate this, what am I gonna call it? Healthy discussion, so thank you. 1.7, final acceptance for Discovery North City.
So this is the next phase of this development. The project installed 1,388 feet of 12-inch water and 1,168 feet of 12-inch sewer main and 101 feet of 10-inch PVC sewer. This is for Planning Area 3, Planning Area 5, a future city park, and it is 231 multifamily dwelling units. And the water cap fees and wastewater cap fees have not been paid yet.
Thank you. And I agree, these are big projects that need to be, presented again, so thank you.
And the other important is this is also new infrastructure. So every mile pipe is a mile that the district is taking ownership of for
Yeah.
new customers that we're maintaining, that we're operating.
And hopefully we won't be busy for a while, 25 years
I hope so.
Or more.
or
But
more.
we'll get the customer calls right away.
Thank you, yeah. Thank you. Any discussion? If not, I may have a motion on 1.7. Moved. And I'll second that. Please vote. Motion passes. Thank you so much. Moving on to 1.8, final acceptance for North City West Planning Area 4.
The final item for this development, this phase installed 2,284 feet of 12-inch water main and 1,480 feet of 12-inch sewer main. This is for Planning Area 4, which is 67 detached condos, and cap fees are not paid yet.
Thank you. Any discussion? If not, may I have a motion? All motion? May I have a second?
Second.
Seconded, please vote. Motion passes. Thank you so much. Moving on to the last consent item, 1.9, right?
This one's a little different.
This one's a little final acceptance for Cherokee-Pacifica Water and Sewer Improvements on the Creek Street Partners LLC. Let's hear the difference here, Rockstar.
Okay, so this is 36 multifamily dwelling units and a commercial space. The project's located on Cherokee Street. The project installed 40 feet of 8-inch PVC sewer, and the cap fees for this project have been paid.
Nice.
So this is on Cherokee and Rancho Santa Fe.
Cherokee Rancho Santa Fe. Gotcha. Any discussion? Why'd you say it was different?
Because it's
commercial?
not part of the Hill District.
Oh, okay.
So,
Where's the pump station for like this, isn't the desal pump station right around there?
The desal connection
Connection?
is on Pawnee, which is I don't know where on the map it is, but it's close.
Right there. Oh.
But if you can find the O'Reilly Auto Parts, it's behind.
Oh, the APN number 219 is O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Oh, no, it's right there, actually. It's on the map. It's
Okay.
actually right here where you see these blue lines.
Oh, I was wondering,
that's
I
our
thought it was
desal.
nearby.
That's
Okay.
the desal for what they call the PIF, which is the Water Authority, and this is our connection right here.
Oh, okay, yeah,
So, thank you.
yeah, nice. Any discussion? May I have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Director Hellethart.
Looking at the pipes was off.
I'll second that. Please vote. Motion passes. We are through the consent items, and Director Boyd Hodgson, thank you for bringing that up and bringing that. Much appreciated.
And Jessica, you can stop sharing that item. Thank you.
So that is the end of the consent calendar. Moving on to public hearing. And thank you for the prompts. This is public hearing AB 2561, public sector vacancy rates. And let me read this. This is the time and the place for a hearing to receive comments on AB 2561, public sector vacancy rates. General Manager Gumpel, will you please provide details to this?
Yes, thank you, President PENNOCK. So the hearing is for the purpose of receiving public comment on AB 2561 for public sector vacancy rates. This is an annual process now. This is the first year of it, and this public hearing needs to take place prior to adoption of a new budget. So this will be coming back annually for board presentation, giving a summary of the district's recruitment and vacancy rates. With that, I'm going to hand it over to my dream team and the human resources, Denise Aviles and Bridget Anderson. So take it away.
Thank you, General Manager. So tonight, we are going to be presenting AB 2561, which is the status of vacancies, recruitment, and retention efforts here at Vallecitos.
Just say next slide.
On the next slide. All right, we're going to go over the agenda. So tonight, we're going to be talking about requirements and reasoning of the AB 2561. We're going to look at Vallecitos workforce information, our vacancy information, our recruitment statistics, our hiring issues and strategies, our retention statistics, and retention issues and strategies, and then we'll sum it up with a conclusion. So, I skipped one. Okay. So the requirements of AB 2561 that was effective January 1st of 2025. The law also has been added to the Brown Act. This item must be presented before the governing board at least once per fiscal year, so you'll see this every year from this point forward. And it also needs to be done prior to the adoption of the final budget. AB 2561 requires a public agency shall present information to include status of vacancies, recruitment and retention efforts, any necessary changes to policies, procedures, and recruitment activities that may lead to obstacles in our hiring process. So some reasons that agencies are looking for the AB 2561 is to look at job vacancies. So we try to understand why we have vacancies in local government. They are a significant problem affecting various occupations across different wage levels and education requirements. We're also analyzing the impact that it has on public service delivery. So high vacancy rates can undermine the delivery of public services, leading to increased workloads for existing employees, which may result in burnout and high turnover. We also analyze labor relation concerns. So persistent high vacancies can strain our labor relations between public agencies and their employees, affecting the morale and cooperation between staff. So this is a little bit about us. So at Vallecitos, we have 109.75 total budgeted full-time positions. We have 100 employees in the bargaining unit, and we have the remaining employees are 5 in our manager group. We've got 4 that are unclassified staff, and then of course our general manager. So now we're going to get into some of the statistics. So So this first slide you're gonna see, this is gonna be for the calendar year of 2024. So all of this information is based on last year's information. This gives you the statistics over the whole year, so it goes month by month, and it looks at things like retirements, resignations, terminations with cause, the introductory period, and promotions and transfers. So as you go over through the year, you'll see the totals at the end. So we had 3 retirements, 6 resignations, we had 0 terminations with cause, we had 3 vacancies during introductory period, and we had 2 vacancies due to promotion and transfers.
Sorry, what's an introductory period? What is it, just?
So our introductory period here is 1 year. So when you first get hired, it's considered your introductory period. You meet with your supervisor at like the 6-month mark. The supervisor then meets with the general manager to discuss if the candidate's going to be successfully passing their introductory period. And so those are kind of all the things that are with the introductory
It's 1
period.
year, okay.
Yeah, 1 year.
Thank you.
I have another question.
Yes.
Are all of these mutually exclusive, so there's not a double count between, someone leaving after their introductory period and a resignation? Are those, so we had 9 folks leave due to those 2 causes last year? There's no overlap? Okay, thank you.
Okay, so now we're gonna go and break it down a little bit more. We're gonna look at vacancies. And what I want you to understand is that the first line is number of vacancies, the second line is vacancies filled. Those are not going to be equivalent to each other. Vacancies created could have been vacancies that happened in the previous year that rolled over to that current year of 2024. So your created may not be what is equated out to the filled. Our average percent of vacancies at the end of each month equates out to about 7.2%. The highest percent of vacancies you will see is 10%. That's in the months of June and July. Our lowest percent of vacancies were at the end of the month was 3%, and you'll see that was in March. All right, so these are vacancy statistics for resignation only. Human Resources generally looks at resignations when analyzing issues with employee retention. Retirements, promotions, and other types of vacancies are generally foreseen and positive. Resignations are unexpected and a result of employees' choice to leave and are seen as more negative. As you can see on this demonstration, the average percent of vacancies at the end of the month is less than 0.5%. Our highest percent of vacancies at the end of the month have been 2%, which you only see in April, and the lowest percent of vacancies at the end of the month is 0, and you see many zeros going across the bottom. All right. So this next slide demonstrates resignations only in our agency comparison. So Olivenheim Water District conducted an anonymous agency survey based on resignations over a 5-year period, and here are those results. Vallecitos is indicated on the chart as agency H in the dark orange line. The red dotted line is the average among the agencies surveyed, and as you can see, Vallecitos falls far below.
And just to clarify, far below is a good thing in this case, because
Yeah.
It's like golf,
yeah, or
Yes.
or bowling.
low score wins.
Numbers, yeah.
So we thought this was pretty interesting, so we wanted to make sure to include it. So these are some statistics about us. So in 2024, we had 17 recruitments. Our average days from post to hire were 92. Our longest recruitment was 137 days, and we had to repost it. Our shortest recruitment was 34 days, and that was because it was an internal promotion. So those were always quicker. Average applications received is 46.
Per position,
Per recruitment, yes,
per recruitment, 46?
average.
That's good.
Wow, I know,
For an agency our size, that's very
yeah. Thank you.
Our most applications was 106, and that was for the safety and training specialist position that we had posted last year. Our least applications received was 12, and that was for our meter services supervisor position. All right, so we want to look at our hiring issues and the strategies that we have discussed to try to tackle those hiring issues. So our hiring issues are highly competitive market for talent against the private sector. Limited candidate pool, particularly because of specialized skilled trades, information technology, and engineers. Those are specialized, they're definitely harder to fill. High cost of living in our surrounding area, often resulting in long commutes. And then once hired, we've been noticing a mismatch with the public sector environment. So some strategies we've used to combat that is we've increased the general manager's authority for hiring salary. We've used the ability to increase the starting vacation accrual for previous public agency employees. We've increased recruitment testing to make sure we're hiring those highly qualified candidates. And we've developed strategies to start to educate candidates by going to job fairs and discussing how it is and what it's like to work in the public sector. So those are some of the strategies that we've utilized. Our retention issues and strategies. So once we get the person on, how do we keep them? And reasons that they may have left us once they've started. So reasons for voluntary separation have been, one was for relocation, one was for better pay, and we had 4 for promotional opportunities. Strategies to maintain our employee retention. We've looked at competitive pay and benefits. We have increased our employee recognition programs. We've created middle management level, and we've increased our HR staff to focus on development and succession planning because we added an FTE to it, our staff. So in conclusion, our vacancy rate does not trigger any additional requirements pursuant to AB 2561, which is great. We're under the threshold for how many vacancies we have. We don't hit the 20%, so that way we don't have to do anything extra. We have very healthy levels of turnover. We've implemented targeted retention strategies that directly respond to employees' needs, such as enhancing pay and benefits, recognizing contributions, investing in first line and middle management, and expanding our HR capabilities. And again, we remain competitive to attract and retain top talent. So with that, if you guys have any questions, thank you, and we are here to answer them.
Well, thank you, Dream Team. Appreciate that. Yeah, it's a very positive report. Any comments, questions?
Yeah, I was just wondering, what are the additional requirements for the higher vacancy rate?
So we would have to actually have a real public hearing. We would have to,
We have to notify the employee association. And they have to have an opportunity to speak.
to come and speak. And I did actually give this, even though we didn't have to, I actually met with the leadership for our association. I actually went through the PowerPoint and gave them the PowerPoint, and I told them to go ahead and let the constituents know that we're doing this tonight, and if I did ask if anybody wanted to come, they could have come. So we've been completely transparent with them the whole time.
Thank you.
I think that's a really good presentation. I think that looking at our line relative to other lines really speaks to the culture that we have here and people want to work here. Thanks for putting that together. I think that's a great presentation, and it really speaks well of Vallecitos.
Thank you. You'll get it next year again. Yay!
So I did have 2 quick questions.
Oh, yes.
As far as, I mean, now that you put this together, is there a reporting? Do you have to report what you found? Or only if there was, if there was
We
above the
only have to
threshold?
report to board.
Okay, but nothing, there's nothing, no state agency or anything
No.
like that?
No.
And then you've been probably doing something like this even before this requirement.
Correct.
But
Most
I
of
would
this
like,
we've
if you
been
can,
doing.
let us know, I mean, how much more time did it take to actually put this report together, what you were doing previously?
So I have to say, this is really funny because James went to the ENCINA board meeting and they presented this. So he got us in contact with ENCINA. ENCINA provided what they did, so we copied it. And then Bridget, when I got here, we already do a lot of tracking. So Bridget tracks all of our demographics. So it was just a matter of her going and getting that information and plugging it in.
Okay, so it wasn't a large
For
time
us,
requirement
it
because
was
of,
not, but I have heard other districts have, obviously larger districts also will have to put a lot more effort and work into this. A lot of this stuff we were already doing.
well, that's what I was wondering, if you're
Yeah.
already doing it and then you just copied the template and you're good.
Yep,
Nice.
she already does wonderful.
Yes, agreed. Thank you very much. And this is for information only?
No, it's a public
President,
hearing. So on your prompt sheet, you're on number 2.
Number 2, does any member of the Board of Directors have any additional questions for staff? Does any member of the public wish to address the board? And if so, there's been no other person wishing on the board, there's nobody here. Does any member of the Board of Directors have any further questions or discussion? No. We'd like to close this public hearing.
Yeah, just take a motion to close the public
Can
hearing.
we
if you
take a
would,
motion to
please.
close the public hearing for AB 2561?
Move to close hearing.
Second. There's a motion and a second. Please vote. Thank you. Did I do it right, Jessica?
We got there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on, that was 2.1. Moving on to 3.1, amendment to the task order agreement for enterprise automation for the High Point pneumatic pump station. Thank you. And we'll turn the time, Director.
Yeah, thank you. So this one will be coming through our engineering, our district engineer, Elizabeth Lopez, and this is also a developer job, but a little different flavor. So with that, without ruining all the information, I'm gonna hand it over to Elizabeth to present.
Thank you, General Manager Gumpel. Good evening, President PENNOCK and members of the board. Tonight for your consideration is Amendment 3 to the task order for enterprise automation, I'll refer to as EA for short, for the High Point Hydro-Pneumatics Pump Station. Some of you might recall this project has a very long history. Sorry, the screen share's not working, is it?
It was working.
It was, yeah, I didn't touch it. There we go. So as some of you might recall, this project has a fairly long history. A construction agreement for this project for water and sewer improvements, including construction of a pump station, was approved by the board in 2006. The pump station, shown here on this figure, is located near our Palos Vista tank, and the pump station only serves the proposed development, so that would be the future customers will have, as shown here in High Point Phase 1 and 2. The original developer in 2006 nearly completed construction of all of the water and sewer improvements, including the pump station, but walked away from the project due to the economic downturn. And the improvements were never accepted by the district, and homes were never constructed. The site has sat dormant until July of 2023, when the Board of Directors approved a construction agreement with the current developer, CalWest, to rehabilitate the pump station. And the board also approved a task order for enterprise automation in the amount of approximately $167,000 to assist the district with the PLC panel design, procurement, and fabrication of the panel, all for the pump station, in addition to SCADA programming for the pump station. You may recall per Ordinance 187, developers submit deposits to the district to cover district labor costs and any other associated expenses, including fees for external consulting services, such as the services EA is providing us for the pump station. So basically, developers pay for development, and when the board approved the task order for EA, CalWest provided the district a deposit to fully cover EA's task order. EA's contract is being administered by district staff, since EA is the company working on our district-wide SCADA upgrade. Since the board authorized the general manager to execute the task order with EA, there's been 2 amendments already executed against their contract. The first amendment was executed in May of 2024, and that was for approximately $6,200. That amendment was for inflation costs for procurement of the PLC panel. And EA's scope of work, the cost, the $40,000 cost for the panel was only valid for 60 days due to supply chain issues and high pricing availability. The second amendment was approved in July of 2024, and that was for sales tax for the panel. EA's scope of work didn't include the sales tax for panel, so that had to be added, and the cost of that was almost $4,000. So amendments 1 and 2, totaling just over $10,000, were within the general manager's signing authority. The pump station is currently in commissioning, which indicates construction is complete, and we'll be really excited to get this project done. CalWest coordinates commissioning dates with our district inspector, and since we're administering the contract with EA, our inspector coordinates with EA to schedule them to be on site for the commissioning dates as requested by CalWest. EA's original scope of work included 2 on-site days of support for commissioning and equipment startup. So far, CalWest has had them on site for 5 days total, and commissioning's not done. So due to unforeseen issues with CalWest's contractors' means and methods, this has created additional scope of work for enterprise automation to be on site more than anticipated, and there's been some additional programming needed to get the pump station up and running. The additional on-site services that have been requested by CalWest have included travel expenses, EA's commuting from Irvine every time they come down to the site, and some control updates. In Amendment 3 is also an additional day added for more on-site support for EA, just in case we need another day for commissioning, because it's been a little bumpy so far. All out of the control of EA and the district. It's the contractor's means and methods and the developer's schedule. So the developers agreed to pay the additional scope and cost of Amendment 3. They also paid a deposit for Amendments 1 and 2, so this does not cost the district any money. The cumulative total of all 3 amendments is nearly $57,000, which is outside of the general manager's signing authority. The signing authority is $50,000, so that's why we're here this evening. With that, staff recommends authorizing the general manager to execute Amendment 3 to EA's task order for additional on-site support and programming services for a total time and materials not to exceed fee in the amount of $46,773 to be administered by staff and fully reimbursed by CalWest.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, 2006 started, huh? Appreciate that. Any comments, questions?
So this is basically just a pass-through where we're gonna get reimbursed through CalWest, so it seems pretty easy to decide that we'll go with staff's recommendation, but it's just my thoughts.
Yep. Any questions? Do you know, is there services out there at all? Like electrical, water, was there anything developed? Yeah?
Yeah, there was electrical. The pump station was almost operational. James might have more to add because he was here
I was
then.
down in engineering when this happened. It was right during the recession, and the pump station was in commissioning. They kept on stalling for the startup and testing and bringing the pump manufacturer out, all the things that are required for commissioning. And then the developer just went dark. And they basically walked away from the project. It went into conservatorship, and a bank held control of it for a while, paid the district to run the pumps weekly so this way things wouldn't go bad. And for about a year, and then after that, the bank stopped paying the electricity bill. Also during that time, people were stealing copper and other materials, so there was vandalism upside. So even then, at some point, the whole system, fire hydrants were stolen, wires from street lights were stolen.
Oh, so they had the.
It was ready to go. It was ready to go. They were ready to put sticks down and start building frames.
Cut, everything.
Yeah, rough grading at least. I don't know about final grading.
Wow.
And then it stayed dormant for a number of years, and we'd get a developer in every couple of years that were interested in doing their due diligence, and then finally it started moving forward. I think Elizabeth was still at her previous job when it started moving forward there, and she thought she escaped the job when she came to Vallecitos, only to re-inherit it.
So is there underground pipes?
Yeah, so we did a condition assessment. We used that Pika tool. There was a nice video that Chris's team put out. The first time the district used it, the developer paid to see the condition of the pipes because it laid dormant for 10 years.
20 years.
Well, before we did the testing, and what we found out was the pipes were corroded from just being dormant and no water moving through them, just being wet and basically stagnant. So the developer had to replace all the pipes. Is that correct? Yeah, all the pipes.
Oh, really?
And then they had to rehabilitate, basically replace the full pump station, except for some of the underground steel pipes and the walls themselves. But
Water
pretty
and
much
sewer.
everything else is new.
Both water and sewer had to be all replaced?
It's mainly water. I think there's only a couple units on sewer, and the rest of them are on septic.
Septic. Thank you, interesting. Any comments, questions? If not, we have a motion, or is this, yeah, we have a motion?
I'll move to approve staff's recommendation.
Motion by Director Elizar.
I'll second.
Seconded. Maybe, let's vote. Motion passes. Thank you, Elizabeth. Appreciate that. Boy, you were busy today. Do we need to take a break before this next one?
I think they're raring to go.
We're raring to go. We've been raring to go for a while. 3.2 Vallecitos Water District Fiscal Year Budget Update.
Yeah, so as part of the annual budget process, the board gets a budget workshop today, and now is the time where we're gonna give the board an update from everything that the finance committee has already seen, and a full budget workshop prior to moving forward, hopefully a final budget, and then moving forward after that with hopefully an adoption. So with that, we have actually several members of our finance team, starting with Wes and Jody, to present, and I think Mike has a big part in this also. So we'll have 3 members here presenting on the budget.
So if you call them the dream team, what do you call this team?
You know what, it's just, they're all dream teams, so, they're financial dream team.
Okay, gotcha.
I asked Elizabeth if she just wanted to continue on and do our presentation for us.
She was getting
She didn't
comfortable.
want to do it, I don't know why. We all set to go?
We are all
Good
set to
evening,
go.
President Pennock, members of the board. I'm excited to be here tonight to give you the draft budget update. And of course, to give you the budget party page. So the board doesn't get to see it very often, 3 times a year. Committee sees it all the time. Tonight's presentation is to get the board caught up with what we've been working on really hard, working on hard for the last 3 months. The committee and staff have met several times and spent a lot of time putting this together. This meeting really serves to just get the board caught up. So with that, we'll go into the agenda for tonight. The first thing we're going to talk about is the actual versus budget for the last 6 years, see how we're doing on our budget process. Then we'll talk about the preliminary salaries and benefits. After that, we will go into the operating budget requests, then the capital budget requests, and then Mike will talk about the water purchases and revenues, and finally the preliminary reserve levels. So we have a lot to talk about tonight. So the budget calendar will start there. Every year we develop a budget calendar, sort of our guideline or our roadmap for the budget process. And in February, we always update the actual numbers with the audited numbers when they are finalized, and then we start working on the individual departments' requests. The first Finance Committee meeting in February this year was on February 11th, and at that meeting we went over the budget calendar, and then we talked about the budget versus actual for the last 5 years. In March, staff will actually compile all the department requests and start developing the operating budget. We work on the current year projections, and we start working on preliminary salaries and benefits, and then we also do the debt service forecasts. And then March 18th, we had our second Finance Committee meeting. At that meeting, we went through all the operating budget requests. It's approximately 36 pages or so of, line by line item detail of those requests for the year. And then in April, we incorporate all those requests into the budget, and we start working on the next pieces, and we do a lot of revising and refining. And then April 28th, we had our third and final Finance Committee meeting of the year. And at that meeting, we went over any operating budget changes that happened from the first meeting to the last. We also talked about the water cost estimates and revenue requirements. After that, we talked about preliminary salaries and benefits and then the capital budget request. So that was a very long meeting for the committee and staff there as well. It's even longer tonight because you get that plus. Now in May, here we are. We've taken everything, we've compiled it into the draft budget, which was included in your board packet along with all the materials and services requests. And we've now put together the 5-year and 10-year reserve projections. So we'll be discussing those tonight as sort of a, here's the big picture. And even the Finance Committee hasn't seen that yet, so a little something new for the directors that go to that committee. And that's what that bullet point was supposed to be that didn't get out there in time. So with that, we'll start off with the February 11th meeting the committee had. We talked about budget versus actual. So here are the water operating expenses, budget versus actual for the last 6 years. And we can see in 2023, we were under budget by 4.98%. And now in 2024, now that we have the actuals for the audit, we were actually over budget by 1.42%. The main reasons for that were the first one was the pump zones, the power costs were over budget by $234,000. And transmission distribution was over budget by about $185,000. And you can see the total of that 1.42%.
I'm sorry, I missed the second one was what?
Transmission and distribution. So the 1.42% comes out to be $203,000 over budget, and that's made up of the power costs and the transmission distribution. And that was just because we had more main breaks this year than we had last year. I believe it was 31 main breaks this year compared to 23 last year. So I'm just going to verify that in my notes so I'm not lying to you.
And while he looks that up, the main culprit pipe that caused the main breaks about once a month, that portion of the Trace Amigo line has already been replaced.
And we also had a big one in Rincon and Escondido in October. It was an 18-inch main that broke. It was about $270,000 for that main. So, yeah, and it was 31 this year versus 23 last year. So
And those are lumped under transmission?
transmission distribution is the department that handles the majority of the main breaks.
Gotcha,
Yeah.
okay.
So that is the water budget to actual. Moving on to sewer. Sewer is actually under budget by 9.32%. Or $778,000. Main reasons for that were that customer service was under budget by about $96,000. We had a lot less labor than anticipated, and a lot less materials and supplies due to, and that's actually kind of good news because that's usually for locks, so less locks this year than previously. And also engineering was under budget by $162,000. Sewer typically tends to be the fund that has the more CIP projects. So the engineers spend a lot of their labor time on projects, which results in less labor because it's charged to overhead. So there was more labor than anticipated. And then safety and regulatory affairs were under budget by $96,000 because they had $65,000 less labor, which is a result of turnover in that department. The last 3 years with safety and regulatory affairs, it's been some turnover that we're starting to get figured out, and I think it should be better in fiscal year 2026. So that's sewer. Now, the next thing we're going to talk about is preliminary salaries and benefits. And this slide is from page 25 of your draft budget. And these columns over here I've added for presentation purposes, and we can see the labels up top just show you how we derived our numbers in the presentation. The first thing I want to talk about is the projected versus budget for fiscal year 2025. So how did we do for 25? How are we projecting that we will do? And actually it looks like we're projecting that we'll be under budget in salaries by $1.1 million. We've had a lot of turnover this year. Denise hit on some of it in her presentation. We've had approximately 9 new positions. We've had, what were the other numbers? 9 new hires, 2 retirements, and we had 4 vacant positions for the majority of the year. And 2 of those positions were the ops manager and the AGM, so they're higher dollar amounts as well. So that's really turnover and just less than anticipated positions. And also the delay in filling the positions, and when we fill them at lower rates, it results in savings. So the total salaries and benefits projection is under budget by $1.8 million, and $679,000 that is because of the benefits being under budget by $700,000, and that's directly correlated to the salary. So a lot of the benefits are directly related, like PERS is a percentage of salaries. Group insurance, if we don't have the bodies, we don't pay for the insurance. And Social Security is a percentage of salaries as well. So total savings, we can call it $1.8 million. So while it's not ideal for us to be understaffed or have vacancies, it does result in savings, which is kind of, you can look at it as much needed, especially with the water rate pressures that we have right now. So we did have some savings in salaries and benefits. And then looking at the projected versus the actual for 2024 versus the projected for 25. We are projected to be $155,000 higher than we were last year. So we had even more turnover last year, actually. So we're a little bit higher than we were last year. And our total salaries and benefits is projected to be $555,000 higher. The main reason for that that increase is the $301,000 in PERS. In fiscal year 24, we did not have a UAL payment required because PERS actually had good returns. So it was 0. And in 25, we actually did have a payment of around $350,000. So PERS is over what we anticipated by $301,000 or over the prior year. We do have another payment this year, so we're going to see that again. So looking at budget versus budget for 26 versus 25, we are budgeted to have salaries increase by $517,000 or 4.05%. That's basically our COLA. If you remember, the MOU had COLAs of 5.544 for the 4 years. This is our 4% year, the first year of the 4%, and our total salary is increasing by 4%. So even with normal steps, replacing positions at lower rates and stuff, we've only seen a 4% increase in salaries. And then benefits are budgeted increased by $601,000, and the main reason for that, as I mentioned, is PERS. Our UAL is increasing. Unfortunately, CalPERS only got 5.9% returns, which is below their expected rate of return. So our UAL will be increasing, and our required payments increasing to about $860,000 for the year. So that's about $500,000 higher, and that's what's causing the increase in PERS. So total salaries and benefits is budgeted increase by $1.1 million, or 5.77% for the year from fiscal year 25 to 26. Also worth noting is the positions down bottom are budgeted increase by about 0.25 of a position. And that really is we have a position in conservation that's a 3/4 position, 0.75, that we're requesting be increased to a full-time position, so 0.25. That is the salaries and benefits, and now I'm going to talk about budget versus actual for salaries and benefits, and this is my colorful slide. We have salaries in the bottom and benefits at the top. The red and yellow are the budget, and the blue and green are the actuals for the last 5 years. And really the purpose of this slide is just to show through efficient operations and scrutinizing positions as they become available. We've been able to keep salaries and benefits very steady over the last 5 years. And we've even had, as I mentioned, savings and budget to actual. So the last 2 years we've had almost 6% and 9% budget to actual savings. And we say this, I present this slide every year as my colorful slide, and we keep it steady. But we like to, last year we went out for the first time and compared ourselves to other agencies to say, okay, what other information can we give you to show that we're doing what you say, not just say it over and over again. So we actually did a survey last year of other agencies and the number of employees they have per 1,000 connections. And in full transparency, these are last year's numbers. So we haven't had time to update them. We're planning to bring them to the next board workshop with the current numbers, with the exception of ours. Our number here is actually decreased from 2.52 employees per 1,000 connections to 2.51 because the number of connections grew and our number of employees did not. So we've gone down, so if all else stays equal, we'll be number 1 on this chart. We'll be the lowest, so we're doing the most with the least if it stays the same.
And just to clarify, being number 1 is not necessarily positive or negative. We look at it very neutrally.
It's a good balance. So I had a question, what is Sweetwater doing?
Yeah, Sweetwater's got, I had a sheet, I don't know if I had their connections. I'll have to look at their connections versus employees.
That's a
but
big discrepancy
yeah,
there.
6.9. So I did print it out, and if I have time in the break, I'll check it out and let you know. I'll show you once I've looked at whether it's the huge number of connections or a lower number of employees. I don't think they're that big, though, as far as staffing, so I'll see if I can figure it out. So moving on and looking at our FTEs and TEs, historically, our full-time equivalent employees over the last 10 years or so. You can see here in 2016, we had 115.25 FTEs. And then in 2017, through attrition, we were able to identify 3.5 positions that could be eliminated. And then again in 2018, we found another 4 positions that could be eliminated. And those 7.5 positions are saving the district today hundreds of thousands of dollars. And since then, we've added 2 positions since 2018. We've added an asset management supervisor and the assistant operations manager. But other than that, we've stayed really steady over the last 10 years or so. So in looking at that as well, the next thing I wanted to show you is during that time, so we went down to 107 and stayed steady, only increased by 2 employees. And our number of connections in the meantime increased from 41,901 to 43,652.
I mean, what do you attribute, is that technology? What do you attribute that to?
Technology, some of it, we do have some positions where we're like extension of staff, where we like ask for help and outsource certain things, so we do that as well. But any way we can find efficiencies through better reporting, through just doing things more efficient, or extensions of staff, we utilize as much as possible.
We also, sorry.
Go ahead.
We also repurpose a lot of positions to higher level positions so they could actually do more productive work or higher level work. And it put us in a position where we ended up becoming short from an administrative side. And now we're trying to balance that out again to get some balance the administrative help. Because we went where the need was, and need was higher level work. And then we kind of just, everybody did their own admin work. At some point, when that admin work grows so much that you have higher paid people doing a lot of admin work, it becomes inefficient. So we're re-looking and scrutinizing positions with that frame of thought, the right positions at the right time to be the most efficient for our customers.
I mean, is there a lot of meter readers that decrease because of technology too?
So, we were already full, basically, remote reading.
By
drive-by,
2015?
before I got here, right about when I got here, which was 20 years ago. So that technology and that savings was already realized.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, the only thing that's happened in the media department at one point, we actually did reduce it by one position because we outsourced our backflow services. So we had a full-time position doing a lot of backflow stuff, and we were able to eliminate, that was one of the 4 positions, I believe, that we eliminated, and we outsourced it to BSI is the company that we use. So while our connections are growing from 41,000 to 44,000, the number of employees per 1,000 connections went down from 2.75 to 2.51 over those 10 years. So yeah, we've really done a good job, I think, doing more with less. And then some of the initiatives we've taken during that time, and I mentioned that we've saved hundreds of thousands of dollars, so just to break it out and give you an idea of what that amount is, by eliminating the 3.5 positions in 2017, in today's dollars, we're saving $281,000 in salaries and $59,000 in benefits. So it's a total of $340,000 per year for those 3.5 positions. And then the 4 positions eliminated in 2018, in today's dollars, are $331,000 in salaries, $78,000 in benefits, and a total of $409,000. Other things we've done, well, actually, almost forgot, we are eliminating 1 position this year that will result in $75,000 in salaries, $18,000 in benefits, for a total of $93,000 in savings this year, starting this year and continuing. And then other initiatives we've taken, you may remember we fully funded our OPEB, which I believe was in 2016. We fully funded the trust, and by doing that, we no longer have to pay for our retiree medical costs. And that's saving us $351,000 in FY26, and that's projected to be $404,000 by the fiscal year 2030. Another thing, we pre-funded our PERS UAL, so we actually sent in about $12 million in 2 separate payments to PERS to pre-fund our UAL. And that, by paying that off, we actually reduced our required minimum payment to PERS every single year since then. And this year that amounts to $315,000. So if we did not pay it off, we'd be paying about $1.9 million this year for our required minimum payment. And we're going to be paying $1.6 million, but that 1.6 includes the amount that we're paying per our policy to avoid negative amortization. So we're no longer just paying the minimum. Just for clarification, we actually avoid the negative amortization, so we pay an additional amount, and that total is 1.6. So we're still saving, even with that, $315,000 per year, at a minimum every year. And then in total, the annual savings for salaries is $687,000. For benefits, it's $821,000, and $1.5 million total for both every year, and then that amount is only increasing. And this doesn't mention the approximately $20 million in interest savings that we are realizing by prepaying the unfunded accrued liability. By sending in that $12 million, because there was negative amortization built in and it was over a 20-year period, it saved us about $20 million in interest just by paying that off. So the important things to...
You mean over 20 years, 20 million over 20 years? Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So that is the end of my presentation. I'll stop and take any questions you have, and if there are none, I'll pass it on to Jody to go on to our operating expenses.
I have a comment.
Yeah.
I just want to congratulate you, and in conjunction with this presentation and the presentation that Denise and Bridget gave a few minutes ago, it looks like we're balancing really well lean operations, but the culture is not suffering. And I think that that's really important, because we can talk about saving money by saving money in salaries and benefits, but if you're operating too lean, it becomes too much for folks. So I just want to compliment you. It looks like we're doing a good job balancing those things. Thank you.
Well said. Any other comments? You're on.
Okay. Clicking. Okay. So starting here with water operations. Here we have the chart showing the breakdown of the proposed 25-26 budgeted water operating expenses. Of the $61.8 million total, $45.9 million is for water purchase costs, which are considered an uncontrollable cost to the district. So basically, we do not have much control over approximately 74% of this total budget. Of the
Sorry, before
remaining,
you, is this both, are we combining desal and what, and met, okay.
of the remaining 26% or $15.9 million, 20% is salary and benefit costs, and the remaining 6%, or $3.9 million, is for water operations. This includes items like materials and services and power costs. And before we get into the detail of the water budget results, I will quickly demonstrate how department requests flow through to the draft budget document, starting here with the section of the materials and services report that was provided to you earlier. This report summarizes all department budget requests. It is organized by department and category type. This example shows the backflow prevention department budget request for materials and supplies and outside services. It also shows the staff member requesting each item and whether the item is recurring. Most of the items in this report are recurring, so that means the one-time costs stand out and can help provide answers as to why there may be large changes from year to year. Then moving a smaller version of this report down and adding the backflow prevention budget page, you can see the $16,000 flows over to the budget page, as well as the $74,000 for outside services over to the budget page. And then when you add the cost of labor, the total budget requested for backflow prevention is the $116,000, which will flow through and get carried forward over to another summary page of the budget document, which I'll show here. You can see the previous $116,000 total for the backflow prevention is listed on this budget summary on the far right, which is part of the $61.8 million that was mentioned earlier for the total 25-26 water operating expense budget. And so that was the roadmap from department request to the draft budget. Moving on to the detail for the water budget results. For this budget summary page, we added a budget to budget comparison column on the far right for analytical purposes. When you compare the 24-25 budget to the 25-26 budget columns, you get these differences here. And the water operating budget is projected to increase by $931,000 or 6.2%. This calculation excludes the water purchases line at the very top for the uncontrollable costs. The 6.2% includes costs such as materials and services and salary benefits, costs that the district has more control over. So some of the larger increases are highlighted in yellow, and next I will go over the items that are causing those increases. For pumping, there's a $188,000 increase in power costs compared to the prior year. Transmissions and distribution, the increase is primarily due to increases in labor costs. And for customer accounts, the increase is primarily due to labor costs and various increases in contracts or services that are used to process customer payments, and an increase in bad debt expense.
So can you take some time on that customer account as far as that's just administrative?
Mm-hmm.
You mean just to process customers' accounts? I'm trying to,
Software, basically.
oh, is that what, software?
Different types
Yeah,
of
it's the
software.
customer service department. So you've got your labor, your outside services and materials and supplies related to serving customers, mailing bills, posting notices, things like that. That's the customer service department.
And that's just gone up that much?
No. So, yeah, I don't think there's a one specific request that's gonna go up by a lot. As Jody mentioned, it's gonna be related to, I think she said labor.
PACE, InfoSend, and Northstar.
So it's the cost of some of our vendors that have built-in increases. PACE and InfoSend. InfoSend does all of our printing
So
and
you're
mailing.
talking like you said, the software costs and things, yeah. Interesting, okay.
Software and actually sending out the bills, the vendors that we use to send out the bills.
Do we shop that vendor? Okay.
Okay, so the increase for buildings and grounds is primarily due to labor costs, janitorial services, and solar repairs modernization planning. Engineering is primarily due to increase in labor costs. And IT, it's for an increase in outside services for SCADA support and maintenance costs, and costs related to various existing licensing fees.
Right there, they get us again. Okay.
And so next is the wastewater operations. The 25-26 wastewater operating expenses are projected to total $18.9 million. This slide shows a breakdown of projected wastewater operating expenses. It is comprised of $5 million for ENCINA. Salary and benefit costs are approximately $8.5 million, or 45% of the total budget, and the remaining 29%, or $5.4 million, includes Meadowlark plant and sewer operations. So this summary information is on page 21 of your budget document, and the far right shows the budget comparison. Overall, the total wastewater budget is proposed to increase by 7.6%, or $1.3 million. And again, some of the larger increases are highlighted in yellow. For collection and conveyance, the increase is primarily due to increases in labor costs and chemicals. For ENCINA, that projection comes directly from their draft budget.
That's the new one? That's the new draft?
Yeah, so with their new adopted draft budget, our costs have increased.
Okay.
And the $163,000 increase for Meadowlark is due to an increase in chemicals and labor costs. And for IT, the increase is due to labor costs, and similar to water, the SCADA support maintenance costs and increases to costs related to various existing licensing fees. Okay, moving on to the capital improvement program. For some background information, every capital project has its own summary page. And this is an example of one of those pages. There are approximately 75 of these pages in the budget document.
Can we see them all? I'm just kidding.
And they are all rolled up into a CIP master list. So at the very top is a project title. This summary is for the SCADA remote site upgrades project. The summary includes a description section that describes the project and why it's needed. Project manager and project number are included. On the far right is the department requesting the project and the funding sources for that project. Comments are included for more detailed information about what the project is going to accomplish. Project spending plan includes previous spending on the project and what the subsequent 5-year and thereafter spending plan is projected to be for an overall spending plan, for an overall 10-year spending plan projection. There's an estimated project timeline. It shows when the project was approved and when each phase will be started and finished, and when the project will be completed. And so here is the comprehensive project list, which is an index of all the capital projects. It has been separated into 4 sections for presentation purposes, but the entire list is divided into 2 categories of projects: carryover projects and new projects. So starting with the carryover projects, which are projects that were budgeted for in the prior years and have not been completed yet. You can see here that the project page on the previous slide is listed here. It references page 42, which is the actual page of the budget that the summary is in the budget document. The $155.8 million amount being carried over is the total previous project budget plus any budget adjustments to date. The $27.9 million is the projected amount that will be spent on these capital projects as of the end of 2025. And then $127.9 million, which is the difference between those two amounts, is the carry forward budget amount to be spent in future years. And then there is a total of $3.3 million in new requests, which includes any adjustments in cost to projects. For example, there are some negative amounts that could be due to a possible project scope adjustment downward. So the 3 largest new requests are highlighted in yellow, and they are for the fleet electrification project, Kogan pump station improvements, and the Rock Springs valve replacement and pipeline condition assessment projects.
So on that one, like item, what is that, 50? the 1.3 savings? Is that because we're moving it from 25 to 26, or is that what, sewer lining and rehab 2026? Is that just because we're moving it out?
No, I think
That's a-
Sorry.
that's a scope change in the project that's we don't need to do as much as we thought.
Oh, gotcha. Thank you.
Continuing with the carryover projects, this portion of the comprehensive project list shows the 5-year spending plan on the far right. It is important to note that the board will be asked to only approve the 25-26 portion only, which is the $31.3 million. The 5 largest projects are highlighted in yellow: the chlorine contact tank expansion, Montiel lift station replacement, Tres Amigos waterline replacement phase 1, SCADA remote site upgrades, and the MRF conversion to sodium hypochlorite projects. And then moving on to new projects. New projects are projects that have not been worked on in prior years. The total amount for new projects being requested for 25-26 is the $82.9 million. Of the 82.9, 24.9 highlighted at the top is for ENCINA, and 39.4 highlighted at the bottom is for future projects. And future projects will not be worked on during 25-26, but are included for multi-year financial planning purposes. And there's also a project summary page that's included in the budget document that lists every single future project.
I have a question. I
That makes
know,
sense.
I know that I've asked this before, but what does our analysis say would be the cost if we were to no longer use ENCINA wastewater? How much would it cost to upgrade Meadowlark so that we could process our own wastewater?
Yeah, so we could process, we get close to processing all of our liquids without ENCINA, but we wouldn't be able to handle our peak flows because we're expanding Meadowlark to 6.5 million gallons, and we'd have to get to about 8 or 9 on liquids. But our peak flows during wet weather is more like 22 to 23 million gallons a day. So there's nowhere close that we can handle that type of volume, and we just don't have the footprint. But besides that, we have no solids treatment capacity at Meadowlark, and ENCINA, the majority of costs in ENCINA, and the most difficult thing to do in sewer is actually solids handling, solids processing. So we would have to build a completely new solids processing plant. That would be probably more expensive, and we've never done the math on that because it's a very large number.
More than $25 million over the course of like 3 years, or?
Yeah, it'd be hundreds of millions,
Hundreds of
to do
millions.
it, and we don't have the property in the right location, so that logistically, because
Gotcha.
Meadowlark is pretty much surrounded by homes.
Right.
And
okay.
also solid processing is very odor intensive.
I like the way you said that. Thank you.
Okay, so that leaves 37 remaining new project requests totaling 18.6 million. Of that amount, the largest new request is highlighted towards the top for $4.4 million for the San Marcos Interceptor East Pipeline Replacement Project. And so the total capital project for all years, the total capital budget for all years and all projects is $214.1 million. So continuing with the new projects, here is the 5-year spending plan for the new projects on the far right. For the total new request amount of 82.9, only the 25-26 portion that will be brought to Council to board for approval in June, and that total is the $8 million. $5 million of that amount is for the ENCINA projects highlighted at the top.
And those will be terminating in 28? Is that why I see such a big difference from 27, 28 to 28, 29 as far as, looks like a $3 million difference? Or, yeah.
No, so what, you are talking about the ENCINA numbers or the total numbers?
the ENCINA numbers,
So the ENCINA will
between
keep,
27, 28, 28, 29.
ENCINA gives us a 5-year projection, but next year they'll give us another 5-year projection.
Okay.
and then years. So the 5-year projections keep on rolling forward. So we don't know.
That's what we just don't know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so moving on to vehicles and equipment. Total vehicles is budgeted at approximately 1.6 million. That amount includes certain vehicles that were proposed in prior years and are being carried forward due to delayed receipt of the vehicles, and they are highlighted in yellow, and total total 885,000. There are 700,000 in new requests for 2026, and the larger proposed purchases are for 3 F-150 Lightning trucks at $83,000 each. And then the next slide is for facilities and equipment of 20,000, which includes the item listed here, the calibration tool for transmitters. And so the combined vehicles and equipment total budget for 25-26 is 1.6 million.
So I also had a question I've asked before. We always purchase these just because we beat up the trucks? We don't do a lease program? Is that pretty much why we still don't? I mean, it's changed because of the electric. Is it still not the same? We still beat up those electric trucks, so we can't lease them instead of spend $80K per? Is that kind of where we're at?
We haven't, been using the electric trucks long enough to really have an answer for that. But we do purchase the trucks and we make them go as long as possible. For example, those 250s that we're purchasing, those are replacing 18 and 20-year-old vehicles. So we've had this for quite a long time, and we've made do the best we can, but they're starting to fail. In fact, one of them's already had an engine rebuilt on it, so it's hitting that point where we need to replace them.
Gotcha.
But we maintain our vehicles to a very high standard. We keep them clean. Our mechanics do a really good job.
I know, I see them, and that's why it seems like we could just lease them and save that big cost of $85K. I mean, do we even have the infrastructure? How are we charging these guys?
That's part of the fleet electrification CIP project that they mentioned earlier. Right now, we're working with NV5 on the design for that, and that project is to have SDG&E bring in a new drop, new switch gear, charging infrastructure, power units to phase in
at our cost?
implementation. Yes,
Yeah.
at our cost for now. SDG&E's Power Your Drive program will, provide us some of the money back on the tail end once it's all installed. But we haven't received how much that's going to be just yet. Yes, sir.
Speaking of which, is there any further movement on the exemption for our type of vehicles?
Yeah, so what Director Hernandez is talking about is, I believe it's an assembly bill, it might be a Senate bill, but at the state level, they're looking at exemption for emergency. And within there, it hasn't gone to the floor yet, so it's still gonna be quite a ways before we know. But if it does go through, not all of our vehicles, but our vehicles that qualify for exemption, we'll seek exemption on those vehicles. They're vehicles that are primarily used for emergency response. And then no matter what, there's still an exemption for items for vehicles that they don't make electric vehicles or equivalents yet, so we will still file for those type of exemptions. But currently, for us to purchase a new vehicle, half the vehicles we purchase have to be electric, so.
Correct.
Thank you. Before I get off that though, so now I'm thinking, that Ford Lightning, I mean, is there some, I mean, they make an electric Ford Maverick, don't they?
Yes, but
Those
they
too
have
small?
they have to have a gross vehicle weight rating of 8,500 or above, so basically an F-250 weight or more, and the Maverick, as you know, is not quite an F-250.
But it's really economical.
It is.
All right, thanks.
Okay, with that, we'll pass it on to Mike.
All right.
Good afternoon, Director Pennock, members of the board. So in one of the slides that Jody went over, she did the pie chart that shows that purchase water is about 73%. So I just wanted to give a historical slide on that. Back about 6-7 years ago, the portion of water portion of the total budget was about 70%. Right now, for next year, it's about 74%, projected to go up to about 76%. So why this is important is just to show you that a bigger portion of our budget is uncontrollable. And on the bottom, I just have just a little statistic on there. So if about 3/4 of our budget is fixed, and it's going up, the initial numbers from the Water Authority were 15.6%. If you just do that simple math, that before considering any other cost increases, that's 11.6% increase on our total expenses. So next slide. Oh, actually, do you mind if I drive? So some of the assumptions that I wanted to go over real quick. As you guys know, we get numbers from the Water Authority that are not so solid. Speaking of solids. It's actually pretty solid wasteful, the numbers that we get, because we get preliminary numbers and then they change drastically. And so right now, the number that I can hold my hat on that I have backup for is 15.6%. Now let me state that the number that's being thrown out right now is 12%, but when I do all my analysis, I can only go on what I have backup for. So for any 1% change, I put this in here just to give you the math. For any 1% change either way, it's about $250,000 in expenses. So if the number from the Water Authority does drop to about 12%, that'd be about $900,000 in savings from what we have presented in here. So I just wanted to kind of be transparent on that these numbers probably are a little bit overstated. So for VWD, what does that mean? Well, right now we're looking at putting into a new Prop 218. I believe 3-4 years ago we did a 5-year Prop 218, and in there, at the time, it seemed a good idea to put in a 6.5% limit on pass-throughs. So I told you the previous slide was about 11.5% that we're being hit with. We can only pass 6.5% through. I was on a meeting today, and some of the agencies, I think it was Helix, was complaining that their pass-through limit is 15%, and they're hurt because of that they had to draw money out of reserves. Another agency, I forgot which, is now putting a Prop 218 that says 100% of the pass-throughs will be passed through. So we're going to try to work on language on that in our new Prop 218 to kind of insulate and protect us as the Water Authority changes their methodology and their rates. So I do want to give you the shock factor. Now, we are not approving rates at all today. I just wanted to let you know what this 15.6% could potentially mean. What we're looking at for the next Prop 218 is potentially doing 2 increases next year. One to catch up, and that catch up is, like I was saying, the 6.5% limit last year was about 12%, which was passed on through us. So we're short 5.5%. The year before, I think we were short 2 to 3%. So when I say catch up, though, it doesn't mean that we're going to back bill customers. All that money is already taken out of reserves, so we're not planning to catch up in terms of replacing the revenue we've missed in the last couple of years. It's just catching up to a starting point where we're even, if that makes sense. So here's the shock factor for you guys. There's a potential 11% increase in August and September, and that's just to catch us up for the past. And then with a potential, again, preliminary numbers of a 7% increase next January, February. So I just kind of wanted to prepare you there. So when we get there, it's not like too shocking.
You shocked me, Mike.
Yeah, I know.
Question. So Mike, if it was 12% from the Water Authority instead of 15.6, how would it change those numbers?
So the 3.6, right, that's a 3.6% delta. Now remember that only 75% of our total, so take 75% of that, so it's about 2.6%. So about 2.5%, let's just say, that these rates would potentially come down.
So it'd be in the 9.
Yeah, depending on how we want to slice it, it'd be either 9 and 7 or however, and that's up to the board's discretion.
Mike, just to clarify, the potential 11% wouldn't change because those rates have already been adopted and we're already undercut for the last several years. We've been passing through lower than the actual adopted rates. It's the additional increase in January that would affect. Is that correct or am I wrong?
Right, but again, it's still at the board's pleasure, so we could smooth it and say, like, if the 11 and 7 were the actual ones, that's 18%. We could do 9.9. We could do whatever the board wanted at that point. So I just put it on to catch us up. I wanted to do the potential one in August, September to get us to a starting point, to a good starting point.
I have a question. Okay, so sorry if I need this repeated, but so the 11% increase is just to catch up, And then the 7% is to account for the anticipated 15.6% increase from the water authority?
Sort
Yes.
of. So it's taking a
Okay.
portion of that increase, and it's already, a portion of that 15.6, that's now that potentially is 12, is in that 11, just to ramp it a little bit better, or else.
Oh, okay.
So, like I said, we can transfer those numbers a little bit. I just tried to do it with mathematically on my spreadsheet, which made the most sense at the time.
So, okay, so hypothetically then, if the water authority has a 15.6% increase, which you're anticipating, then we could cover that all, our loss from the previous year and the increases with an 18%
Roughly,
increase.
yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. And then the other thing I wanted to touch on was adjustments to pump zones. If you remember last year, I brought pump zones to the board, and at the time, we had to increase pump zones. We had to almost double them. And we talked about trying to keep pace with SDG&E rates. The intent of the pump zones is to cover 95% of the electrical-only costs to deliver water to those higher elevations. Previously, we were at 45%. We are currently at around 92%, so that's good. I have a slide on the pump zones in a minute, so I'll kind of stop there and circle back to that in a minute. So what does that mean in terms of the projected preliminary budget estimate for this year, and then our projected budget for next year? The water sales, and it'll make more sense when I bring in the next slide, because these numbers by themselves don't mean much, but water sales about 35 million, the ready to serve, which is the fixed portion on the customer's bill, is about 16 million. The pumping cost recovery, which I just talked about, the pump zone charges are going to be about 740,000 this year. And then on the other side, the costs. What are the costs for the district? That's 72%, 73%. For this year, we're anticipating 39 million. Number is artificially low, let me say, because we did notice a one-time savings of about $1.5 million overall with the desal. The desal was down 6 weeks, I believe, so we didn't have to pay that additional desal. So looking at it on a kind of pro forma basis, that the water cost this year would have been about $40.5 million. So when I bring in the next slide, and you can see the comparisons. So next year, the water sales revenues is projected at about 39.9 million, and that's with those 11 and 7% already built in. The fixed charges, the ready to serve, about 17.5 million, and the pumping charges to incorporate the increases from San Diego Gas and Electric of about 840,000. So the water costs, and I have another slide that goes into more detail on this $45.8 million, but about $45.9-ish million.
And Mike, that includes the estimated 15.6%?
Yes, that's with the 15.6 baked in. Like I said, if it's about 12, it'd be 900,000 less, so let's call it 45 million even.
Can you just clarify, so the water sales, that's self-explanatory. The water costs, that's what we would pay to San Diego County Water Authority?
Yeah, and I have another slide that breaks down that 45.8 million line item.
Okay, thank you.
That we'll go over in a second. Might be the next slide, I'm not sure. Oh, no, then I also do a sensitivity analysis. So what that does, it says, what if it's a really rainy year and our sales are cut by 10%? What would that mean? What if it's a dry year and the users are irrigating their lawns? What would that mean also? So I do bookends of minus 10% and a positive 10%. And so the left column right here is the demand change, minus 10, minus 5, 5, and 10, and the reserve change. What the reserve change means is the net revenues that we would see less the net expenses that we would see. So this is a direct hit in our pocketbook, basically, to our reserves. So if demand were to be cut back about 10%, we'd see a negative or a hit to us of $1.1 million. We'd have to take $1.1 million out of reserves. So the last 2 years when it was really rainy and sales were down, we saw a hit on that. It's kind of a double-edged sword too, because when sales are down, we are saving on not buying water, but what water are we not buying? We're not buying our cheapest source of water. When sales are down, what revenue are we not receiving? We're not receiving some of our most expensive water, tier 2, tier 3. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. We're not buying our cheapest water, and our revenues are the tier 2, tier 3 that we're missing out on. Conversely, that's why if sales were to go up 10%, we are buying an additional cheaper water. It's not so cheap anymore, but cheaper water. And most of that increase is in tier 2, tier 3.
Yes, and just for the record, as the board already knows, it being a public agency, being nonprofit, everything that goes into reserves or out of reserves are for our customer base, used for our customers. So we're basically a net balance agency because there is no profit in anything that we do.
So the next slide, this is the slide, Director Boyd Hodgson, that I was talking about that has the delineation of all of our water sources of our purchases. So we do have, I put the top 2 lines are contractual amounts, so I put them first. So we have a contract to purchase desal water, 3,500 acre feet. The price per acre foot for the fiscal year is about $3,944. I want to kind of explain the difference between fiscal year and calendar year real quick. All of our increases are put into effect on a calendar year basis. So if you're at the Water Authority's board meeting, you might see that the desal cost is probably around $4,100. What I do is I take 6 months at the old rate, 6 months at the new rate, meld them in. So the rates are going to seem lower than what you might hear on the board. So I kind of wanted to just put that out there. So when you see this number and you see another number, you're not like, Mike's crazy, even though I might be.
So on that contract, is that a level contract for what term with the desal plant?
It's 20 years
20
originally?
years, yeah. 20-year contract.
Year 10?
Yes, there's no increase, and as far as level, not, the cost is, it goes up.
It does, so there is.
Yeah, it goes up annually, so the quantity is level, not the cost.
But the cost is
Is
it
not.
baked in there though? I mean, is it like a 5% each year type of thing, or is it?
No, the only cap in the cost is on certain components, electrical, certain other components, but most of the other costs are variable.
So they are variable. And we're how far into that 20-year?
Half.
10 years in?
And there's no provision in that contract built in to reevaluate after a certain amount of time?
At the end of 20 years, absolutely. At the end of 10 years, we have the options to double our purchase if we'd like.
Oh,
So-
how convenient for us. Okay, all right.
So the next contractual amount we have is to purchase raw water from OMWD. And so what that provides is that actually provides us a discount on the treatment. So whatever the treatment costs are from the Water Authority, we get a 20% discount on that. So that's why you'll see that the OMWD price is $2,078 versus the Water Authority's price of $2,183. That delta is the discount that we get on the treatment. So we want to purchase as much OMWD water as we possibly can because it's a cheaper source of water. And then the remainder of the water is San Diego County Water Authority, and I'll lump in these next two, the additional desal. 3 or 4 years ago, there was an issue with us receiving desal water, and part of the agreement is that we can purchase additional desal over the next X years at the same cost of Water Authority water. So that just shows you the approximate amount that we can buy additionally of desal water, but it's the same cost of the Water Authority's water. So just taking the acre feet purchase times the cost per acre foot, simple math, gets you the cost for that source of water. So the total commodity costs are about $38 million. And then the fixed component, which is some of the transportation costs, some of the storage costs, some of the infrastructure access costs and things like that, is about $8 million, $7.9 million for next year. What I want to also note is the Water Authority is transferring they're moving around a lot of their costs. So they're moving it from variable to fixed. They want to have a more stable revenue base. So they're trying to build up their fixed charges. And like on transportation, I believe they're trying to go 50% variable, 50% fixed. And they're, I think, planning to move that to 40% variable, 60% fixed. So the costs are swapping. It's important for us to note that when we do our Prop 218 is to kind of remember that and build that in. Right now, our Prop 218 says 6.5% on fixed and fixed 6.5% on commodity, which had we known that the Water Authority was going to swap all these numbers around, we probably wouldn't have done that. So that gets to the $45.8 million. And again, if it's 12%, that 45.8 would go down to about $45 million.
Just to kind of add to what Mike's saying about that, so with the Water Authority moving commodity costs into fixed and us being locked in, they could overall show a commodity increase that's, let's say, only 5%, but a fixed cost increase that's 30, 40, 50%. And we would only be able to pass through 6.5% because they, not artificially, but they move costs that used to be in commodity into fixed. So it puts Vallecitos in a real vulnerable position because basically they're changing the way they formulate it and we're locked in. So you could be in a hypothetical scenario where you have no increase in commodity and you only pass through 6.5% of fixed because they moved most of their costs or significant costs into fixed. So when we look at our future 218, we have to insulate ourselves against that because that will not only is that happening now, but it's planning on continuing to happen over the next course of several refreshments or evolution of the rates.
Right. Yep. So for next year, we're planning to purchase 14,700 acre feet of water. So the next slide, this is the pump zone slide that I alluded to earlier. So SDG&E costs have gone up about 12.5% since the last time we did this analysis last year. And so really it's just simple math again. It's you take the current rates, adjust them for the SDG&E increases, and the increase by zone would be anywhere from 3 to 16 cents. The 3 cents would be on Meadowlark because that is the lowest elevation. Again, the pump zone rates are based on how much feet of lift we have to provide to get to that elevation. And the biggest, the 16-cent increase would be on Double Peaks because that's the largest lift. So when we come to the board on June 4th, part of adopting the budget will also be adopting these rates, which are separate from regular commodity rates. What I wanted to do, we send out a fact sheet that's basically the same sheet we sent out last year, just updated to all of our pump zone customers. We have about 3,030 customers down here. So we'll be sending out a sheet, a letter to them, letting them know that the board will be reviewing the rates on June 4th. So at that time, we'll be adopting the rates. The one thing I wanted to say is even with these rate increases, the total impact on the customer, their total water bill is about 0.5%. So even though the SDG&E rates went up 12.5%, the portion of their total bill is about 0.5%, depending on their usage.
So what that means in dollar amount, it'd be somewhere between 39 cents and $2.08 at the highest end for an
average.
For an average customer.
I had a question about the pump zones. Is there a map or something that shows where all the zones are?
I will include that on our next meeting, and we'll get you one before then. But yes.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, we'll have GIS create something for you.
Yeah, well, it's already created.
Okay. Yep. There is one other thing I wanted to mention on this slide real quick. Give me a second. If it comes to me, I'll let you know. So there was a question, when we set rates, we have our regular rate revenue, we also have discretionary revenue. I kind of wanted to do a background on discretionary revenue and give you a history. So I did a little bit of research on it, and I'm going to read this verbatim. So discretionary revenue is income that is not legally or contractually obligated for a specific purpose and can be used at the district's discretion to fund a variety of programs, services, capital projects, or to offset rates. Now, there are some limits legally on discretionary revenue. We can't just give it to a certain class of people without looking at the totality. So our sources of discretionary revenue, we have about $3.7 million, this was last year, for the water fund, and they include property tax revenue, redevelopment revenue. We have some cell site rentals, and there might be some other very minimal $1,000 in other revenue that we may have. So some of the uses, and I put down here as the name implies, discretionary revenue can be used at the board's discretion, subject to legal constraints. I wanted to specifically note that any discretionary revenue not allocated for a specific purpose is used to offset customer rates. So if we have $3.7 million in revenue and we decide not to do anything with that money, that is used to offset everybody's rates. So I wanted to be clear on that this isn't money that we use for something else or we hold on to or we build up our reserves. It benefits all customers. So what have we been doing with this discretionary revenue? Well, about 3 years ago, we decided to implement a program that offsets some of the costs for water for our customers that are use tier 1 and tier 2 water. So basically our lower user customers. The reason why we did that is everyone uses tier 1, tier 2 water. So we can make the argument that everyone is benefiting. So that kind of gets us out of, you still want to be careful with Prop 218 with using discretionary revenue, you just have a little bit more leeway. So right now we do offset tier 1 rates of about 79.80 cents per unit of water, and tier 2 rates by about 24 cents per unit of water. So I think our tier 1 rate is $4.55 right now. If we didn't use this offset, it'd be 80 cents more, it'd be $5.34 per tier 1 unit of water. We also, and as I mentioned, the third bullet point down there is any money that's not used for tier 1, tier 2 is just used to offset everything else. Now, we do have some money that we allocated for public outreach and educational opportunities. So we're taking a portion of that $3.7 million. It's probably less than 2% of that money for scholarships, the scholarship program that we instituted, for things like the Water Academy, for things like the Poseidon Education, which I think is for the 5th graders. So we do use a portion of that money for that. Again, any money that we use for that is less money we have to offset rates. So are there any questions then on discretionary revenue, sources or uses? Okay.
Good job.
So then the next presentation is on the sewer side. The sewer side is a lot more simplistic. There aren't all these variables like there is in purchased water. We also, for the revenue projection, at least for this year, there are no projected rate increases. So, and there haven't been any rate increases for 7, 8, 9 years. So the revenue stream for the last, historically for the last 5, 6, 7 years has been pretty stable, just growth in terms of our customer base. So for sewer service, our rates are about $19.2 million. Our reclaimed water sales, which is the water that we produce at MRF and we resell to Carlsbad and Liebenhain, is about $2.2 million. Now, I do want to say that those sales are below what's budgeted because our plant is down right now, so we're not selling, we can't sell any reclaimed water. So that number is down. And then other revenue, late fees and all that kind of stuff is about $152,000. So for a total revenue of about $21.6 million. So for next year, pretty much it's really just growth in customer base, except for the reclaimed water sales. So reclaimed water sales, we do have a new contract that I don't think it's been approved yet, that we're working on a new contract.
Almost there.
At the finish line. So it seems like a big jump, but again, remember that this year's sales are depressed because of the plant down. So reclaimed water sales of about $3.9 million for a total revenue of $23.6 million. So I think that's the end of my presentation. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
I have a question. So are we bound by any kind of Prop 218 or any kind of ordinance that if we wanted to try to resale reclaimed water to other agencies or other entities or even other states or anything like that, do we have the liberty of exploring that as a creative solution to have more revenue?
So our new recycled water agreement, if and when it gets approved, I'm hoping to bring it to the board here shortly, will be our first actual agreement that the district could actually not just break even. It guarantees us to at minimum break even, but actually make money. So it's a take or pay agreement and with a minimum, and that minimum covers our costs. And if they take more, then the cost of that, them taking additional recycled water, will actually provide additional funds above and beyond our cost. A lot of those costs will all be eaten up by our variable costs, but all of our fixed costs will already be covered within the minimum. So in essence, the new agreement, once we do, will provide, for budgeting purposes, we assume we're still going to break even. And depending on how dry the year is and how much recycled water demand is, my hope is, and I haven't told Mike this, or so they're really worried looking at me, is that we'll show a budget to actual probably increase in where we have more revenue on dry years. And then on years that are more wet, we hopefully will show a budget to increase net neutral. So yeah, we are
sounds
getting
great.
there through that process, just a
Thank you.
little differently.
Is it just a couple of percentages, or is this a
It-
potential? Not, I mean, I know we can't have a moneymaker, but are we talking about a couple $100,000? Are we talking about something that could materially make a difference?
It could be in a big year. It could be, and we haven't done analysis, and I don't really know. But it's more than tens of thousands. It could be a couple $100,000 at the high end, I believe.
Okay, thank you.
Any comments, questions? Mike, it's always a pleasure. You know how to turn boring numbers into something exciting, I guess, somehow.
Yeah, I was going to start out, because I always start out with a joke. I was going to say Taylor Swift has a song that says spelling is fun. I would argue with her and say that math is fun, so.
You agree? Oh, thank you. Very, very good. Do we have more?
Yeah, we're not.
Turn it back to Wes.
We have back to Wes.
Back to me.
Do we have more?
I can't wait.
We're still going. I said it was gonna be a lot. And
This
just to
is
go-
what it all rolls up to, right here.
Right here,
Yeah.
okay. And
And just to go back quickly, you asked what was going on with Sweetwater. Sweetwater has actually less than half the connections we have. They have approximately 20,000 connections and more employees than we have. They have 138.
yeah,
So they've just got, compared to us, we'll call them overstaffed
we are
for their
efficient.
connections. We're very efficient.
Thank you.
Okay, so moving on, next part of the presentation, this is the fun part, actually. This is where we get to the conclusion, we get to the roll-up, we get to the, the news, like what's it all telling us? So now that we have the operating expenses, we've got the salaries and benefits, we've got the CIP, we can put that all into the budget, and then we can look at it and say, what does it mean for our future forecasts? Now, we've noted during the presentation a couple times, it's important to note that when we come to the board in June, you'll only be approving potentially 1 year for fiscal year 2026. But we do this 5-year and 10-year forecast for financial planning purposes. This is important to the rating agencies, and they look at our days in cash, they look at our reserve levels, they look at our debt service coverage ratios, and that we have sufficient reserves to continue to function, and that we have a plan that we're following for those reserves, which would be our reserve policy. So this is more for that, but this is what we, develop the budget and plan for. So looking at the replacement reserves, and we're just going to talk about the reserves today that relate to the rates, right? So water rates and sewer rates, which would be our replacement reserves. But the water replacement reserves, as you may know, our reserve policy says we have a floor and a ceiling. The floor is based on 3 years of projected replacement of infrastructure plus 6 months of operating expenses, and the ceiling is 10 years of projected replacement of infrastructure plus 6 months of operating expenses. So the floor for water replacement reserves for 2026 is coming in at $25 million. And by 2030, that floor will be $29 million. And the ceiling for water replacement reserves, 2026, is $69 million. So anything over the ceiling, if we were to have it, which we don't, but if we were to have it, would become rate stabilization fund, so it would just basically lessen the rate increases we needed for future years. And by 2026, that ceiling will be $79 million. So now looking at the graph, we got the floor and the ceiling in place. What do our balances look like? So now we've incorporated all of our expenses, and our balances for the next 5 years look like this. So 2026, water replacement reserves are projected to be $30 million, so we're still above the floor and within policy limits. You'll see a dip down, though. We have several water replacement projects in the next 2 years, approximately $23 million in water replacement projects. And by 2030, it's projected to be $33 million. Now, we have to stay within our floor and our ceiling. That's our policy. So there is a caveat in here, which is an assumption that in 2027, we may have to consider issuing debt for replacement projects, and that would affect ratepayers. And that amounts to approximately $7 million right now. So this is the draft. We're still looking at whether we can move projects or if we're going to get there, and it's 2027. So it's not something that we're approving now or is actually going to happen, but it's part of our financial plan. In order to stay within our policy limits, we have to include an assumption in the budget that we may have to issue debt of about $7 million for ratepayers in 2027.
I think you can do without. issuing debt?
I'm hoping it
I
doesn't
think you
happen.
can.
I'm hoping it doesn't, because it's not the best environment right now to be issuing debt, so we're doing everything we can to avoid that possibility.
Question for you. So this projection in 2027, this 28 million for the balance, does that account for like borrowing 7 million?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So if you didn't borrow 7 million, you'd actually be below the floor.
We'd be at 21 million, which would be below the floor. So
I
that-
see.
That
Okay.
triggered that assumption that we put in there.
Would that be projected then for 28, 29, 30 as well, where we're, okay.
Yeah, so it's included in the balance. So
Okay.
that $7 million gives us sufficient reserves to stay above our floor for the 5 years.
Okay.
And the reason why we have the policy that we have is to try to achieve a high rating, credit rating.
Well, and the credit rating is not only for the credit rating, it's also for the operations of the district, right? To make sure we have sufficient reserves to function and provide reliable, sustainable water to our customers. So we've determined through best practices and other agencies that, you know, the levels we've set are appropriate.
And so is there no appetite to re-examine the policy for a year and modify the policy and build into the policy that we will revisit the policy? Because as it seems like whenever we talk about making big decisions and it seems like we are bound for years by something that seemed like a good idea at the time, and there's no flexibility to revisit it. But if we had the flexibility of re-examining the policy for a short period of time and build into any kind of new ordinance that we adopt or something like that, a revisitation of the most recent policy, I think, I'd like your thoughts on whether that's something that there's appetite for.
So we could always revisit the policy. My first thought on that would be, it looks like we're trying to change our policy to meet our current needs, which is not really a stable financial plan, meaning the rating agencies are saying you're changing your policy whenever you want to make it work for your financial plan, which is not really what they want to see. They want to see that we have a plan and we're sticking to it, versus saying, well, it's not going to work this year, so let's change our plan, and then next year, let's see if we can change it to, you know, to something else that's lower. We could look at it and say, okay, is $26 million, is that more than sufficient? Like, could we say 2 years of projected system replacement costs and 6 months of operations or 3 months of operations? We could always revisit it and see if we can do something like that, but it would be more than likely a permanent change to the reserve policy going forward. And I would recommend that we look at other agencies and what they're doing and best practices and make sure it fits that. And as long as we have sufficient justification, we can always look at it.
And just to clarify, the policy is set by the board, so the board could always look at the policy. That's clear. From a staff standpoint and looking at our outlook, we're a growth agency, and going out for debt is one of our best financial tools. So keeping us in a strong position to go out for debt, because we have debt issuances, especially on the sewer side, coming up multiple with all the projects. Those $200 million in CIP, granted, it's going to be spread over 10 plus years, is still much more significant than most other agencies. And going out for debt is basically a arrow in our quiver that is probably the most powerful, the largest arrow that we have.
And I get that. I hear everything that you're saying, and I appreciate also that we also don't expect, you know, when we were making decisions about what reserves we had, we did not expect to be experiencing 15.6% demands from the San Diego County Water Authority. We also did not anticipate that they would be moving their commodity and water charges around in a way that they are. And I think that we also didn't anticipate climate change to the degree that we are experiencing it with these wet years. So I just ask that maybe we think about the risk, and perhaps if we have alternative revenues coming in, maybe we can do a quick shell game and still come out on top without having to raise our rates so much and hit, you know, some of our customers that are really struggling.
Yeah, and staff is definitely going to look at any type of debt service issuance that affect rates with higher scrutiny than expansion.
Yeah, so currently we have no debt that's related to rates. It's all expansion right now. So we haven't had for a long time. So we've done a very good job at keeping, you know, not issuing debt for the purposes of rates. And keep in mind, this is forecasted potentially for next year, and I got to use that potentially, like I'm hoping it doesn't happen. More than likely, you know, there's a good chance that it won't happen, and we're gonna do everything we can. It's not 26, so it's not something that we're approving now that we're actually gonna start working on. It's 27 potentially, and this is a draft. So, you know, this is the first time we're just getting the board up to date. We're gonna do a lot more work between now and the next meeting to see what we can do about not having even the potential in there. It's just that we have $23 million in possible projects in the next 2 years for water that we need to finance. So it would only be, and lastly, I guess it would only be $7 million. So if we can get a decent rate at a $7 million loan, it's not really going to impact rates to a high degree. So those are the water replacement reserves for the next 5 years. Moving on to sewer. Sewer has a similar setup for floor and ceiling. So you got 3 years of projected system replacement costs for the floor plus 6 months of operating expenses. It has 8 years of projected system replacement costs for the ceiling plus 6 months of operating expenses. And the sewer has a lot more projects coming up in the future, both replacement and capacity. And if we take a look at the balance, there's the floor and the ceiling, and the balance looks like that. It's going to be about $46 million this year, so we're coming awfully close to our floor and this year because we do have a lot of sewer projects coming up. And then in 2027, again, there's going to be, so it's $46 million. By 2030, we've got it projected at $54 million. Again, with the assumption that in 2027, we'll potentially have to look at a debt issuance. The good news is on the sewer side, that debt issuance is 100% related to reclaimed and capacity. So this will not affect our sewer rates or our rates to our customers. It'll fully be paid for through our 2 reclaimed customers and possibly our developers. So that's about $14 million there in 2027. So the total debt issuance is going to be about $20 to $21 million, potentially, possibly, maybe, hopefully not in 2027.
So when you do these projections, do you also factor in the cost of that debt?
I do. So if you look at the outer years after 2027, you'll see the first year is typically an interest-only payment, and then the year after that, we start building in principal. And all the debt issuances are in the reserve pages, which I think is around 133 of your budget. So you'll see at the bottom of those pages the debt payments. And we have the 2015 right now, we have the 2021. The 2008 is actually going to sunset next year. So we've almost paid that off. We've only got like $800,000 left on that debt. So with this, we'd be introducing a 2027 debt, which would come to the first payment in 2028 on the reserves, and then the first principal might be 2029. And again, I'm being very conservative. When I say conservative for financial, it means the most I could possibly have to pay is put in there, because our 2021 debt, we haven't made a principal payment yet. We've only paid interest, and we were able to structure it so that it kept our debt payments level until 2031. So our first principal payment on the 2021 debt doesn't come due until 2031. So we could potentially structure even the water, if we were to have to issue debt for water, we could structure it so we don't have a principal payment for years. And at that point, if we didn't get the most favorable terms, we could refinance it or refund it, because they're bonds, refund it and get a better rate on the debt. So I'm conservative in putting that I did a straight line amortization into the reserves, whereas we potentially wouldn't have to do that.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, you know, you mentioned that we haven't raised rates in sewer in a decade, and so we could have reshaped this differently if we had done some moderate rate increases.
Yes, but the thing is, it's not rates. So this is, the debt we're issuing here is related to reclaimed and capacity. So we would have had to change our reclaim, well, I mean, we're recovering it through reclaimed anyway. So when we issue the debt, it's going to change the cost of our contract or the rate per acre foot that we're charging to our reclaimed customers. And the 220 will go to capacity fees. It'll be collected through capacity fees. So, you know, we are actually going to be doing a cost of service study for sewer this year. We have it budgeted and we're planning on doing it because it's, you know, it's been a while, so we want to make sure we've got it in place. And we may need to start looking at raising rates because we do have a lot of sewer projects coming up. But that's not what's really impacting this curve as much as the you know, capacity and the reclaimed.
And currently, all of our debt in sewer is 100% on our expansion funds, which is paid for through capacity fees.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So that's the replacement reserves. If there are no more questions there, I'm going to move on to the next steps in the budget process.
Moving on.
Moving on. It's only been an hour and 20 minutes.
I know.
You guys are all right, so the next steps in the budget process. The next steps will be the next full board workshop. At that point, we're going to take the draft budget, we're gonna turn it into a draft proposed budget. So we're gonna do all of our revising and refining, revisiting this stuff, and bring forward a budget worthy of consideration of the board on that date. And the purpose of that workshop will give you a chance to provide comments and feedback for us to make changes to the final budget, which will actually come forth in June. And at that point, we hope to have the most excellent budget document to propose to you for approval on June 4th. And that will be the end of the road for this year's budget process. And with that, back to the budget party page, if there are no other questions, we'll see you next time, and it'll be a lot less than an hour and 20 minutes next time, I promise.
I like that word, the most excellent budget. Thank you, thank you to everybody that presented, Jody and Mike, and thank you. Any questions, comments?
So on the June 4th meeting, we're going to be approving the budget, which will have, is that when we're going to be setting our rates, right, for, okay, so that comes later?
Yep.
After the budget? Okay.
Yeah, we'll have a whole 218 process going through both committee and board and a public hearing prior to setting rates.
Okay.
Yeah, the main purpose of approving the budget on June 4th is approving the expenses that are included in there, CIP and operating expenses, so that when we go into the next fiscal year, we have board approval to continue to operate.
Thank you.
Any questions? You have budget season here. When is it not budget season?
When is it not a busy season for finance?
August is not budget, but it's audit season.
Just August. We're off in August.
We're working on the interim audit right now. It already started, so there's no, we're moving into the next busy season.
No, truly appreciate all that you're doing. Thank you, because I know with all costs going up, it's hard. You're trying to move things around. Any other comments, questions? Is that it? This is for information only?
Yes, sir.
Good job. Thank you. That's the end of our action items. General Manager.
Yeah, so I only have a few items, and I'll try and keep it short. So work on Rancho Santa Fe Road, 3 to 4 a.m. tomorrow for sewer cleaning is happening. Sewer on the tax roll, another lever that we're looking at pulling, has been gone through Finance Committee and been approved through Finance Committee for a recommendation to bring it to the board for approval. So we'll be bringing that forward on the next meeting just to add to the budget conversation. And, make the meeting just a little bit longer, even though we're going to shorten the budget presentation. Couple congratulatory items. One of them is our excellent finance team got the ACFR award for the 6th year in a row from GFOA, so congratulations.
So that's the Dream HR team and the excellent finance team.
Yes,
Okay,
self-named, so I like it. The other thing is there will be a budget presentation from ENCINA. So ENCINA, when they adopt their budget, has to basically either, I forgot what the term is, get it adopted or approved from each agency. So they'll be coming on the 21st. I'll be sure to put them up front so they don't have to go through our budget process to present the ENCINA budget and be available for questions for their budget. And last but not least for me, scholarships. We received 24 scholarships, which is outstanding, because I think 14 was our record the first year, maybe the second year, and we got down to like 8 at some point, so now we're up to 24. And I know that Chris has been working with the P3 committee on review of that, so we're hoping to bring that, I believe, in June for board approval, or maybe even earlier, and then be able to give checks out at some point before a lot of these students go on summer vacation. So we're hoping to move forward on that, and that concludes my report.
Thank you so much. District Legal Counsel.
So in light of comments during the review and stuff, James and I had talked about, providing you with some updates. Tonight I was going to start with an overview of 218, but hearing some of the questions from the board, Boyd Hutchins' question regarding, can we sell stuff above cost, et cetera, and the late hour, I'm thinking that I would defer this until probably after the budget process. As James indicated, right now we're in the middle of a pre-existing rate study that sets what the rates may be, and those will be the rates you're considering in June. But following that, the board's going to have, or the district's going to go through a process of preparing a new rate study. There have been a lot of new case law developments in connection with 218 challenges across the state, which I mentioned before, the OTI case, which is a negative impact on agencies in terms of how it does its rate studies. So a long-winded way of saying I think I would prefer to defer this report until after we get through the budget process, kind of in light of the discussion we've gone through tonight. And I would encourage any of you to send me any specific questions you may have about 218 and the rate setting processes. Going through the budget process, we kind of see the whole basis of our rates is a cost of service study. As James indicated, we don't make money. So all of our rates are intended to pay the costs of delivering water and service to all of our customers. And you see from those sale numbers, the sale cost is higher than the sale revenue, which in a cost of service business would not provide for a very long history if it stayed in those veins. So with that, I don't have any other further report, but I think it would be better to push this to a later meeting.
Thank you. No, I see a lot of head nodding. We agree. Thank you. San Diego County Water Authority.
Thank you. So we talked on a few things that are impactful from the San Diego County Water Authority, and I always appreciate the discussions that we have here, really bringing it home to how what happens at the Water Authority really impacts our district as well. And I encourage everyone to reach out to me if you have comments or thoughts and you want me to take that to the board. Please do. That's my job as the representative to the board. Excuse me, just a brief, I'll just touch on a few things. The Water Facilities Master Plan was adopted. We approved a couple of contracts, a drilling contract, let's see, we formed opinions about a lot of Assembly bills and Senate bills, and if you have specific questions about any of those bills, I can dig into that for you and get back to you. But the Water Authority spent actually quite a lot of time also debating two staff recommendations on two different bills, one from the Assembly and one from the Senate, and really it was the intent of these two bills was to try to help folks that are underserved afford their bills a little bit better. And this seems, this is kind of a tough nut to crack when it comes to when we have to think about Prop 218. So there was a lot of debate about Senate Bill 350 and Assembly Bill 532. The board adopted a position of support, if amended, on the Durazzo 350 bill, the Rate Assistance Program. And these two bills are similar. They're just snaking their way through one is snaking its way through the Senate and one is snaking its way through the Assembly, and then they'll meet and they'll figure out if they can sort of balance them, and then it'll go for a vote. The AB 532 is by Assemblymember Ransom, also a water rate assistance program. And that bill was adopted a position of support. So the Water Authority is thinking about, how we can work within Prop 218 to help serve our underserved customers in the region, but there's a lot of debate about it. As far as the actual rate percentages, I am not hearing a whole lot of discussion in the meetings about those exact rate percentages yet. So I really appreciate Mike, doing some math and doing some research and bringing that forward, because I'm not hearing those exact percentages just yet. But they are, they are big, and as we have done in the past, we have set a cap. We didn't raise rates at all during COVID-19, and as I've said numerous times, I wouldn't change that. But we're facing heavy increases from the Water Authority, and as I've also said many, many times, if you are in the business of selling widgets and you encourage people to use fewer widgets, then you go out of business. And we're facing that, and the Water Authority is also facing that. And the Water Authority has gone into debt and debt and debt and debt, which is also kind of informing my questions about, can we do something else? I know it's only $7 million, but if we can't repay the $7 million in 10 years, then it becomes much, much more. So that's sort of where that question is coming from. I don't want to end up like the Water Authority. So that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you for your report. Appreciate it. Encina Wastewater.
Yes, at our last meeting, we adopted the 25-26 operating and capital budget, and we also then take it to the advisory committee for the same thing. We adopted that. The dissolved air flotation thickener phase 2 rehabilitation preliminary design We approved that to Corolla Engineering for $393,657,000. Then our source control program technology update is something we've done. Just approved that, and that was end of my report.
Thank you, Director Hernandez, much appreciated. Any standing committees?
Yeah, the Engineering Equipment Committee met on April 22nd. Couple items, we had a capital facilities FY 24-25 quarter 3 update and a development project status update.
Thank you. I know we were supposed to have a P3 committee meeting. Something happened there, somebody didn't show up.
Somebody didn't know they were on the committee. It was
Somebody
really
forgot. We'll leave that person unnamed for now.
Absolutely.
The Finance Committee also met, but it was essentially this presentation, so you all got it.
We did twice, and you got it twice. Thank you. P3 committee will reconvene when this slacker will show up. Any other committees? Any other directors' comments? Meetings attended, seminars? If nothing else, at the hour of 7:15, we will adjourn.